Thank you very much, and good morning once again, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. The 71st plenary meeting of the General Assembly is called to order. The General Assembly will now resume its consideration of sub-item C of agenda item 18, entitled, I quote, Disaster Risk Reduction, end of quote, to hold the high-level meeting of the General Assembly on the mid-term review of the Sendai Framework in accordance with the Resolution 76/204 of 17th of December 2021. This high-level meeting will focus on the theme, let me quote, working together to reduce risk for a resilient future, end of quote. In connection with the item, the General Assembly has before it a draft resolution issued as document A/77/L70.
Gender, transparency, decentralization, but also the relation between the different global agendas that have just been brought up by the subnational level. The development agenda is one single and universal from the territorial perspective. Thank you very much. I am now going to give the floor to Youth Innovation Lab. Welcome.
Thank you very much for this time. Good morning. My name is Pradeep Khatioda, and I'm representing Youth Innovation Lab, a not-for-profit civic tech company based in Nepal. Our organization is dedicated in bridging science to people and policy through innovation. And I'll be sharing one of the approaches we have been experimenting in Nepal, that is in the development of this integrated disaster information management system, and also how we are working with the local governments in bridging this science and public divide. So one of the collaborations we are doing in Nepal is that we have came up with this program called Disaster Risk Reduction and Climate Change Fellowship Program. So what it does is that it places youth and young professionals aged below 30 at the local governments, so where they actually transfer capacities, technical capacities, as well as policy support to the local governments by staying in their municipality and also helping them to digitize their data sets, to change their policies in terms of data-informed decision-making process, teaching them how to use maps, how to use data sets to develop different kind of policies in place. So what we think with this testing in over 65 plus municipalities in Nepal is that I think we are talking about a lot of data gaps, as well as how data can be generated at the local level, and how we can have the validated informations from the local government through the meaningful engagement of youth and young professionals at the municipalities level. And I think the measures of fellowship has to be promoted in different countries, in different contexts, and especially to the countries like least developed countries like Nepal, where there is a gap of technical human resources at the local levels, and also the gap in the technical understanding at the local level as well. And also, I think what we also need to do to make these SFDRR as well as our approaches in DRRM effective is that how we can trust the local government in data production, because until and unless we unlock this potential of data partnership and data governance at the local level, and also data sharing in between different governments, and I think it will be very difficult for us to generate right information or the validated data sets. I think local government are the powerful source of any sort of data sets at the local governments, and which can be ultimately help in decision makings. And I believe we need to empower local governments. We have to, for that, I think the fellowship approach can be one of the models that I would like to share in unlocking disaster risk reduction initiative localized, as well as risk-informed decision making. Thank you very much for the floor.
Thank you very much also for sticking to time, to the representative of Youth Lab.
For follow-up from Nepal. My name is Pradeep Khatioda. I'm the Executive Director at Youth Innovation Lab. I'm from Nepal. A very, very nice, very lively discussion. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I was going through this data. Over 50 years, 69% of worldwide deaths was caused because of climate-related deaths in LDCs. So I was looking into this data and also trying to compare with the kind of situations we are facing in a landlocked country like Nepal. And looking at this, like country's landscape itself. So we have a very interesting landscape. We have a bigger mountains, also high hills, as well as the flatlands, which connects to other countries as well. So looking at this very complex geography of Nepal, and we can also relate with other countries as well. So least developed countries, they don't just encounter these many disasters, but also they die because of poverty, vulnerability, and many other reasons. So I think we also need to look into this perspective, despite having this much of a small population, why these number of deaths are occurring in this country. And I think we need to look into different perspectives. Since I come from this technological background, so I have three recommendations to this forum, if that can be, addressed or revised in our approaches. So one is the access of satellite imageries in least developed countries. I've tried to evaluate these between different countries, least developed countries. So what we have a major right now is everybody loves to give data, or especially satellite imagery, after the earthquake or after the event. But we is providing for the prevention. We are talking about a lot of preventive measures, but then do we have access to all those imageries? We didn't have our satellite, but then how can we get these data sets? Even there is a protocol, there is a process of getting access to satellite imageries after the disaster. So it takes 10 to 15 days to have all those informations in place. So to be able to actually do a couple of modelings, remote sensing and all the data sets, we would need the access to satellite imageries. And I think this should be the first priority if we are talking about the early action for all. The second one is the how can we do the advancement of river and weather stations, especially to the least developed countries. So one of the problem we are facing for the weather predictions in some of the complex mountain and hilly areas is that we didn't have weather stations, and we cannot have the most accurate data sets of those areas. And how can we give those informations to the farmers, to the people who are traveling there, and that are taking a lot of lives. So I think we should also consider these things. And also the last one is, we do have all these accesses. We have been hearing a lot of success stories, especially from the developed countries. We have siren workings, we have early warning systems working in those countries. So how can we make a conducive environment, a learning environment, and how can we replicate those models to least developed countries so that we didn't have to do a lot of research? So sometimes we already have those things in place. We just have to pilot it in few countries. I would like to address these things for consideration. Thank you very much for listening and giving this opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you very much for your questions and also sharing your thoughts. And of course, your inputs are duly noted, and we are taking the note. And of course, from the speakers, if someone wants to answer on this question, so feel free to answer. Okay, so maybe are there any other colleagues wish to ask questions? Yes, please.
Yes, thank you, dear Chair. Dear colleagues, I'm Armine Hayrapetyan from Armenia, the Sendai National Focal Point. I extend my gratitude to the Nepalese colleagues. We have met on different platforms several years ago, and we really appreciate the efforts that you do in this sphere, in the sphere of gathering the forces, of uniting innovation labs, youth innovation labs. And Armenia is also trying to follow follow on that path that you had showcased several years ago as well, how you united the volunteering forces to create the risk modeling for your country. Please accept my appreciation to both of you, dear colleagues. And I want to extend this question to the panel also. Dear representative from India, we highly appreciate your efforts in the support for these countries which are landlocked and which have problems to get their strength and forces. Armenia is a small landlocked country with a very diverse nature and profound gorges and very high peaks of mountains and prone to disasters. But in some senses, we need this technological experience exchange. It is not about only the money. It is always about the innovative solutions. Sometimes we see that there are many wonderful ideas created, many projects funded by various UN systems or other global systems, but this knowledge is mostly closed and inaccessible for those who are farther from this closed, centralized civilization, processes sometimes. And we need accesses to the research gates, to any libraries and information like that. And as you mentioned, the satellite imagery for us was also an issue in terms of the monitoring and pre-disaster discussions, because even if you have a satellite, you are hardly to have imagery until it passes to the territory of your country. So it needs collaboration and cooperation. I have a question which I will address a little bit later, maybe a technical question in uniting forces and experience sharing in volunteerism and in tackling these issues. But I want to thank the whole panel for these insightful speeches and for probable cooperation, I hope, in future for all of us, for the benefit of landlocked developing countries. Thank you very much.
My name is Pradeep Khatioda. I'm from Nepal. I represent this organization called Youth Innovation Lab, and I think we are very well represented as well. Christian, you mentioned about the use of land use map, rig-sensitive land use plans. That was very important in terms of urban context. And I think Niels and Ibrahim, so you also mentioned so much about, how this rigs is shifting towards the urban area or urban context. So just giving to these two perspectives, one from the Haiti earthquake and one from the Nepal earthquake. So in these two bigger humanitarian crises, and also recently with Turkey as well. So in these areas, there was a very interesting approaches were tested, the use of open data for humanitarian support. I would like to know if there is any cases from Turkey, if there is any good practices used from the ground, like in terms of use of open data. I've seen a lot of people contributed, also my organization also contributed on that as well. So I'd like to know if there is any useful cases of data use in terms of open data use on this domain. And also there was a lot of discussion about how we unlock the use of data, because to have a comprehensive planning in the urban setting, I think GFTRR is also advocating for open data for quite a bit of time. They're managing, I think, some of the largest repository of open data as well. So how these data sharing and data partnership between local government perspective or regional government as well as to this forum can actually pitch in a joint way, so that there is less duplication of data and we don't have to worry about getting data from different domains. Thank you.